Good morning, and thank you for your attendance and your interest. Rob Bonta, California Attorney General, here to share with you an announcement from our office. We are announcing an action to protect California's privacy, our safety, their trust in law enforcement, all of which are non-negotiable for us and have been put at risk. I'm here to ensure that the state law is followed and that residents across California have confidence in the people and institutions who are entrusted with their sensitive personal information. One of the most important protections secured in recent years is a law known as Senate Bill 34. This law was passed by the California legislature back in 2015, and its goal and role is to ensure that data collected through automated license plate readers, ALPR systems, is protected and remains subject to California oversight. The law makes it clear that this data can't be shared with federal or out-of-state law enforcement agencies. Unfortunately, despite clear guidance from my office and multiple warnings, the city of El Cajon and its police department have refused to comply with this law. Today, we're taking the next step to protect Californians. We are asking the court to declare El Cajon's practices unlawful and to order the city and its police department to stop sharing this data unlawfully, which they are doing now. For those who aren't familiar, ALPR systems are computer-controlled cameras that capture images of license plates along with the time and date and location of each encounter. On the surface, this may seem like routine law enforcement technology. It's definitely very helpful law enforcement technology when used appropriately. But the reality is far more serious. ALPR systems can collect and store location information that reveals where people live, where they work, where they worship, where they seek medical care, shop, travel, and spend time with family and friends. This is data that can reveal extremely sensitive aspects of an individual's private life and of their routines. Because of that, California law is very clear. California serves as a regulatory steward of its ALPR data, ensuring its use aligns with constitutional privacy protections and community trust. It can't be shared with federal or out-of-state agencies. Let me just be clear about that. The ALPR data collected in California cannot be shared with federal or out-of-state agencies. And when it is shared, if it is shared with out-of-state agencies or federal agencies, and this is the rationale and thinking behind the law, there's no guarantee with respect to how it will be used, no oversight to protect the rights of our residents. We lose control of that data when it's shared with an out-of-state agency or with the federal government. Unregulated access to this data, it risks violating civil liberties and diminishes public trust. When information leaves California, we no longer have a say over whether it will be misused, whether that's for immigration enforcement, surveillance of protesters, tracking individuals traveling here for reproductive care or gender-affirming care, and other purposes that could fringe on constitutional rights. Despite repeated guidance, and I want to emphasize repeated here, we've had multiple conversations with El Cajon, and they are stubbornly refusing to comply with the law. El Cajon continues to share ALPR data with out-of-state agencies in at least 23 states, including Alabama, Arizona, Florida, Illinois, Texas, Virginia, Washington, and Wisconsin, among others, and it is unlawful. Our office reached out directly to the El Cajon police chief and city attorney to provide them with guidance and model policies and let them know their sharing of information with out-of-state agencies did not comply with state law. We were hoping to resolve this with collaboration and conversation, guidance, and partnership, as we have with every other agency that we had concerns about. We were able to work it out. There was collaboration. There was willingness to follow the law. When a law enforcement agency deliberately and stubbornly refuses to follow the law, that is a problem. and thus we are here because of El Cajon's refusal to follow the law. We're hauling them into court to get them in compliance. We also issued statewide law enforcement bulletins in October of 2023, making clear that California law enforcement agencies that collect or use ALPR data can't share that information with federal and out-of-state agencies under SB 34. So there were multiple communications directly, statewide. They could read the law themselves where El Cajon was put on notice of their unlawful law-breaking activity. Yet El Cajon has willfully disregarded these warnings and continued its illegal practices, putting the safety and privacy of its residents and those traveling to El Cajon at risk. That's why today we filed a lawsuit in California Superior Court to bring clarity, to bring accountability, and to bring compliance with the law. Protecting ALPR data is about more than just following the law. Compliance is the floor, not the ceiling. It's about protecting public trust in law enforcement. Communities won't feel safe reporting crimes, cooperating with police, or trusting that their personal information is being handled responsibly if their private information can be freely shared with agencies beyond the reach of California law. Today's action is especially as important as we've got a federal administration that's targeting immigrant communities and other vulnerable populations, targeting access to reproductive health care, targeting patients seeking reproductive health care and providers providing reproductive health care, targeting patients seeking gender-affirming care and providers providing gender-affirming care. We can't allow state or local law enforcement to become tools for enforcement practices that violate Californians' rights. Take, for example, earlier this year, a Texas sergeant investigated a woman seeking an abortion and utilized ALPR data to search for her. This search included cameras in states where abortion is fully legal. Just one example of how this ALPR data can be used in harmful ways. The consequences for these violations of privacy are too severe to allow the misuse of this data to fly under our radar. My office is committed to holding everyone accountable, including public agencies, including law enforcement agencies. If a law is being violated, we're going to step in. We'll use every legal tool at our disposal to protect Californians' privacy. Today's action is one example of that commitment. Let me be clear that we will continue to protect the privacy, safety, and constitutional rights of all Californians. The city of El Cajon is not above the law, and state law must be enforced and will be enforced. Our petition asks the court to affirm that ALPR data can't leave California without oversight and to order the city to comply immediately. This is about more than one city. It's about ensuring that every Californian can trust their personal information is handled responsibly, that the law is being followed and complied with. Our office will continue to monitor compliance statewide, work with local law enforcement agencies to implement best practices, and take legal action when necessary. In California, we're making it clear. Privacy matters. Public trust matters. Safety matters. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge and thank the dedicated team in my office who've been leading this work. They don't do it for the recognition, but I want to recognize them. Amy Hamoy, Curtis Brown, Michael Cohen, Nancy Beninati, Damon Brown, and Daniel O'Baden, an outstanding team who got us to where we are today. Thank you, and now I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Is there any indication El Cajon was sharing directly with federal agencies, or the information they turned over to out-of-state agencies was then turned over to federal agencies?
Our information shows that El Cajon was sharing with other states, with out-of-state agencies specifically. We mentioned 23 states, gave you an example of some of them, almost half the states, obviously. We don't have specific knowledge that there was direct sharing with federal agencies or entities, but the whole point of the restrictions on sharing is that once it's shared with any entity out of the state of California, you lose control. Any one of those 23 states, any agency in those states with whom El Cajon shared the information, could then turn around and share it with the federal government. No prohibition, no restriction, and to your point, no knowledge of that. So we have to believe that there's a possibility that the federal government has access to this information. Some of these states are deep red states that are sharing information as much as they can with the federal government about the culture wars, whatever they may be, immigration enforcement, reproductive freedom, gender affirming care. So I think we would be naive to think that the federal government does not have some of the information that El Cajon has shared, because we lose control. Yes?
In the past, when I've spoken to the mayor of El Cajon, he told me it's really hard to navigate state laws, federal laws. Is there anything ambiguous about what the city should be doing here?
This isn't hard. This is not hard. And if it's hard, could be hard for some, including the mayor of El Cajon, we've made it easy. We've explained to him what the law is. We've walked him through it, chapter and verse, letter by letter, line by line. This is not hard, unless you want to make it hard by refusing to acknowledge what's right in front of your face. The clear language in black and white. Every other agency that we have reached out to when we had concerns managed to figure out a way to comply with it. Wasn't hard for them. So this idea that it's hard, I think, is unfortunately an excuse. We have taken the time. We have been patient up to now. We have walked him through the position. I think he needs to acknowledge his own position on this. He's refusing to follow the law. He is law-breaking by design, on purpose. We've told him what the law is. I'm the chief law officer of the state of California. We've made it clear multiple times. Not hard. This is easy. And he'll find out if he needs additional clarification. If he still doesn't understand what the law is, when everyone else understands it, the court's going to tell him.
You mentioned you had spoken with the city multiple times. What tipped you off to enable those conversations to happen, and how were you notified of what was happening, that they were sharing this license?
We have multiple sources of information. That's part of our job, to know how laws are being complied with or not being complied with on the street. Part of it has been direct conversation with law enforcement. Law enforcement, when they're talking to the chief law officer of the state of California, is often honest and transparent, direct in their conversations with their concerns. When we ask questions, they respond. That's how it's supposed to work. So we learned about lack of compliance in that regard among some of the other agencies and entities. We also have a great set of privacy advocates throughout the state who are on the ground, ear to the ground. It's their job and their focus and their mission to make sure that laws, some of which they may have helped get passed, or maybe they didn't help get them passed, but they support, are being complied with. And so they report to us, too, what they're seeing. And, you know, we don't take anything at face value, but we're interested in all the information that we get. We independently assess it, review it, evaluate it, and then make a decision based on the law and the facts. And so we got a good sense about multiple entities that were violating the law. And El Cajon is the outlier. With all the others, we reached out. Some were surprised, frankly, very concerned that what they thought they were doing, they were not actually doing in terms of the compliance. They work with a private entity that stores this information, and there's controls and certain restrictions you can put on it. And a number of these entities thought that they were not sharing when they were sharing, and they got it fixed right away. That's what you would expect. That's what you would hope for. Good faith efforts to, with alacrity, with speed and urgency, fix the problem once it's raised. But not El Cajon. They have stubbornly refused, and they continue to violate the law. Yes, sir. I'll go here, and then can I go to you?
Yes.
Sorry.
Your office last August, I believe, sent El Cajon a letter asking about their compliance. Could you talk a little bit about why it took more than a year from that letter to the lawsuit being filed now?
Yeah, as I mentioned, going to court is a last resort. We hope to share our concerns, flag the unlawful conduct, work with the entity to get them under control and back in compliance. Sometimes it takes time. We like to make sure we've gone through all the processes and done all the outreach, shared all the information, answered all the questions. And sometimes that takes time. We were able to be successful with the many other jurisdictions that we had concerns about, got them into a good place. But El Cajon, despite our efforts, remains obstinate and unlawful. And in fact, towards the end, just stopped responding. And that's not acceptable. So we'll see them in court.
Just to follow up on this question we asked, I want to be clear. Do we know whether out-of-state agencies use
I don't believe that we know that. I don't believe that we know that. But it is naive to not flag that risk. I mean, that's the whole point that the law was. That's why the law was passed, for the losing control and the sharing for nefarious purposes, purposes that are inconsistent with the law of California. Our laws are different than some of the other states, and we have seen attempts by other states to weaponize data, and that's why we have shield laws in California. That's why we've provided protections to protect our progress and make sure that data isn't used against Californians in ways that are inappropriate. With 23 states having this data, El Cajon voluntarily, willfully, willingly, blatantly and brazenly violating the law in their sharing of that information, I think it's very possible, if not very likely, that this data has gotten into the hands of folks who would use it for purposes that are harmful, and that is not fair to Californians who deserve better. They deserve an El Cajon that's following the law, not one that's breaking the law and hurting their privacy and putting them in harm's way as a result. Yeah.
Follow up to his question and my own question. How fast, talking about it's taken a year to this point, but now that you filed the suit, how fast can that suit move? Are you seeking a temporary order to have them stop? What are you seeking?
You know, we're not moving at this time for emergency relief. We can do that at any time, though, going forward. We're just not doing that today with the filing of the complaint. We are seeking a writ of mandate and a declaration by the court, and we think this is not difficult, that a court can do this rapidly. So hard to give you an exact timeline. Of course, courts are have full dockets and are reviewing a lot of really important cases. Ours is important, and we think that based on the clarity of it, the cleanness of the request that we're making, we can get an order fairly quickly and fairly efficiently.
So if the law was clear to begin with, why did your office feel the need to issue a clarifying bulletin?
We often, look, a lot of laws are clear, and unfortunately a lot of them are not being followed. So we, part of the issuance of the bulletin is to reemphasize what the law says, and if someone read the law, they could see what we see, but also to put it on their radar, make sure it's a priority, make sure that the law, as it reads on paper, is turned into action on the street, so to speak, that it's being implemented, being executed, that they are taking the steps that are needed to implement the law and execute the law. The law doesn't just go from a page in the California Code into action on the street. People need to take action. That's what the executive branch does. They execute the laws of the state of California. And then secondly, we wanted to make sure that people know that we know and that we care and that we're looking and we're monitoring compliance. So it's a fair notice that we're concerned about this. It's on our radar. We believe that there may be lack of compliance. We think that most entities are in good faith, working to comply, may not have taken the steps necessary, but will when they see our bulletin. And that is exactly what happened here. Nearly everyone, except for El Cajon, again, the outlier, the obstinate violator of the law, came into compliance. And so that's how it's supposed to work. We share our interpretation of the law. We let folks know that it's important to us. We let folks know that there will be additional actions if we don't see compliance. Most will come into compliance soon thereafter, and then we'll sweep up the outliers like El Cajon.
Do you have any feeling for how long this has been going on? How long El Cajon could have been sharing this information, in your opinion, illegally?
I have to go look at the timeline. It's set forth in our complaint. I believe it's over a year since we first became concerned. But there's more specificity in the complaint.
Does your office have any evidence that data that was shared resulted in actions by immigration enforcement or any other federal agencies within the city of El Cajon once that data was shared?
Being able to track the information shared by El Cajon and where it goes and how it circles back to impact Californians is very difficult, which is why we have the law in the first place, and which is why that lack of control is the real danger. Once the genie's out of the bottle, the genie's out of the bottle. and anyone can use it in the ways that they say fit. It can be shared multiple times. It can be shared directly with the federal government. It can be shared between states, between counties, between cities, and then ultimately to the federal government. We don't know. And so that's why El Cajon has an important obligation, duty, and they're not, and when they don't follow it, it puts people at risk. So our burden isn't to track that data and see if it harmed people. Our only duty is to see if El Cajon complied with the law. They clearly did not. It is unlawful, and that's why they're going to see us in court.
Did you say there was a third-party entity who was actually sharing the data on behalf of El Cajon? And is that entity named in your complaint, and does that entity work with other cities as well?
Yes, that entity is Flock Safety. They collect and manage the ALPR data that multiple subdivisions, cities, counties, states collect. This is their business model, and they allow for controls to be set by each entity. You can share with out-of-state, or you can't share with out-of-state. It can be limited to sharing with only a few other entities or no entities. And cities can set their controls, like El Cajon could set their controls to make sure that data is only shared within California, but with no one outside of California. And they didn't do that, which is why they're out of compliance with the law. Some of the entities that we work with, when we flagged that their data was being shared, they went back and they had thought their controls prevented out-of-state sharing with other states, with other subdivisions outside of the state, and with the federal government, but they found out that it was not, their controls were not set that way, and they fixed it. And they were disappointed and they were surprised. We like that conduct, getting in compliance, even if in good faith you were out of compliance. So the cities work through a private entity, Flock Safety, to collect it and manage this data.
That's pretty much statewide.
Yeah, I think they're the market leader, and I think most entities use Flock Safety. There might be some competitors that I'm not aware of, but Flock Safety is who El Cajon uses.
I know you said going to court was the last resort. If the city continues not to comply, what are the recourse or what consequences are there?
I mean, if they get a court order, they'll comply. We follow court orders in California, despite what other leaders in this nation have said at times. In all the cases that we brought, we get our court orders complied with. And I think they don't want a court order against them. One, they certainly don't want us to enforce that court order and haul them into court for contempt of court, whether it be civil or criminal. There's a whole lot of steps you can take once you've secured a court order to enforce it, including, if they're not willing to do it, having others, come into their city to force them to do it. Any other questions?
Completely unrelated to this, but what are the conversations that the state is having at this very moment to prepare itself for impacts of the federal government shutdown?
Yeah, first I'll say this: the Trump owns this shutdown. He's the president of the United States. He has stated publicly in the past that when there's a shutdown, it's the responsibility of the president. He's the president, and not only that, but his party also has the majority in both houses of Congress, in the Senate and in the House of Representatives. So they have the ability to end the shutdown. They have not. They failed. They failed the American people, and a shutdown we now have. We are a number of essential federal services continue to be provided. That's good. That's important. But others are being scaled back or stopped for now. And so the state, and I know cities and counties as well, are monitoring the gaps, the lack of the services that are being put on hold, that are not being provided, trying to see if there's common sense steps that the state and local government can take to assist in that regard. But this is the federal government's job. This is their responsibility. It's not for them to fall asleep at the wheel and fall asleep on the job and fail to fulfill their duties and obligations and then have the states and the cities pick up the slack. No, it's their job. So Trump has to figure this out, and his party has to figure it out. And the people of this state and this nation are hurting until they do. And they own it, and they are responsible for it.
I know you're not currently a candidate for governor, but several candidates have dropped out. Are you reconsidering that decision? Is that a possibility that's on the table now?
I love being the Attorney General of the state of California. I'm honored to be in this role. I want to give it everything I got, my full commitment, my full focus, my full passion, all my energy. This is the most important moment and the most important job I've ever had. And I want to do it with all the skills and abilities that I have. I got a great team, and so I'm only focused on this. Doing my job as California Attorney General, everything from keeping the El Cajons of the world in compliance with the law to making sure the Trump administration follows the law and doesn't take away critical funding or violate constitutional rights of our people, and everything in between. So I'm only focused on this.
But you can't rule it out?
Since I'm only focused on this, I'm ruling it out. I'm not thinking about being the governor of California. I'm thinking about being the best AG of California that I can be. Any other questions?
Is there anything the citizens of El Cajon can do to protect themselves?
I mean, I am disappointed, and my heart goes out to the people of El Cajon whose information is being improperly surveilled and shared. They deserve better. They deserve better from their police department. They deserve better from their city leaders. They deserve better from their mayor. They deserve compliance with the law. And we have made best efforts to get them in compliance at El Cajon through partnership, collaboration, counsel, and guidance. And they have still refused. So my goal and role is to get a remedy as fast as possible for the very reason you say, because the people of El Cajon deserve better. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Good to see everybody.